I said, hey, I want to thank you because I've put your philosophy into every piece of material that I've made or written moving forward. He said, look at any set of big films from any decade, and you can tell what was going on socially, politically, what was happening in life. Were there wars? Were the working class in distress? I mean, you can look at film, and when you look at it kind of in clumps, just like the 80s. You can always tell an 80s sound. You can tell what was going on in the world thematically. And I think that's what people forget is that cinema is made based on where it's at, based at the time period at which it's at. Even your big Marvel style movies very lightly ingest an undertone of what is happening in America or being talked about in the world at that time.
Hello and welcome to the Crystal Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with my good friend Chad Bischoff. We talked about making movies. We talked about his new film that they're making right now, as well as the one that has just come out. It's called Daft State. You should check it out. He talks about it. Please enjoy our conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us.
The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Hello, dedicated optometrists. Are you looking for a way to support your patient's vision and overall eye health? Let me introduce you to Vision Edge Pro, a visual performance supplement that stands out in our profession. Vision Edge Pro contains a balanced blend of mesozeaxanthine, lutein, and zeaxanthine in a 10-10-2 ratio. This combination has been scientifically shown to increase macular pigment density, which enhances visual performance, including contrast sensitivity and vision in glare situations. Additionally, Vision Edge Pro provides 300 milligrams of DHA and EPA, fulfilling the daily requirements for omega-3s as recognized by the leading health organizations. This ensures your patients receive the essential nutrients their eyes need for optimal health. Whether it's for everyday screen use, night driving, or enjoying the outdoors, Vision Edge Pro supports your patients in seeing their best. Recommend Vision Edge Pro for your patients today and help them achieve clearer, healthier vision. Contact your local Macu Health representative for more details. Vision Edge Pro, because your patients deserve the best in eye health. Go to macuhealth.com and use the coupon code podcast2024 at checkout for special discounts. So I was having a discussion with your dad at Legatus, and he was telling me that he was talking about your movie that you just released and then the new movie that you're trying to get funding for, and it just made me really interested to kind of, one, catch up with you, and then two, kind of maybe explore the movie biz. Like, I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about how you get something that's that massive funded. And I wanted to take a little bit of a peek behind the curtain with you. You willing to do that?
No, I'm absolutely willing to do that. Let's go.
Cool.
Let's do it. And it is great to see you. Thanks for having me back on here. And it's
know,
so good to catch up.
Yeah, I was sort of heartbroken when you guys stopped doing the podcast. It was a great podcast. It was well produced. I know that Adam wasn't in charge of that.
Well, I mean, it was a team effort. He maybe wasn't in charge of the technical aspects, but creatively, like how we put everything together and how we did everything, like he was very, very instrumental in that. So I can only take credit for a very small piece of that overall show. So.
Yeah. Well, it was great. It was a great show.
Thank you.
How did you,
Thank
let
you.
me ask you, like, what made you decide you were ready to just cut, like you had done enough seasons?
So I think it was a three-part type of thing. It was one of those where, and it was different for both Adam and I. So the show, Less Than 2000, which
Yep.
tackled, primarily 80s and 90s pop culture from music, movies, that kind of stuff. After so many seasons, we had done all the stuff that we were super excited about. And so from there, it was like we were going to start grasping at more things. It's not that we ran out of stuff to talk about. You could spend a lifetime talking about the 80s and 90s. But the exciting stuff that excited us the most, we'd already done all those. But the bigger issue was that we both had different things happening in our lives that were very exciting. Adam got cast in a play, and then he became a director of a play following. And so he was getting back into theater and live. I had just finished directing and putting together Daft State, which is now out and has been distributed. And so that's the film that's out now. And now I'm getting ready to go to the next one. So it kind of became more circumstantial. I think that the sadder thing is that we always keep planning to get together to have, a few times a year to put a special out and to do recaps. And we haven't yet found the time to do it. But we are very much hoping and keeping the links alive so
Yep.
people can still listen. And that's the cool thing about podcasting, because we had our second best all-time download period. I want to say 3 quarters ago, and we haven't released an episode in a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so that it gets exciting. People are still listening to the show and downloading and all that.
Well, if you make something like that, I mean, it is relatively timeless, right? You're going back into a period of time and it's not going to change. So your assessment of that is not going to change. I mean, certainly like culturally things can evolve where a movie wouldn't get made now that could have gotten made back then, but or a sitcom or anything else. But the reality
There's no
is
short
that
list on that, by the way. There's a lot that wouldn't get made today.
Yeah.
But yes.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's some of the best things.
Never
Like The
thought I'd see
Office.
it.
Have you guys ever talked? Do you think The Office could get made now?
Ooh, there'd have to be a lot of concessions. But I guess to see that's the thing that about art that I want to talk. I mean, we can get into this deeper. I don't mean to
No, let's
like
get
launch
into it
into
right now.
something.
That's what we're talking about.
But the thing is, you make art based at the time of life and the things that are happening and the things that are socially either okay or socially allowed to poke fun at. It's like comedians. You make fun of the time, right? I had talked to this film professor one time, and I actually called him about 3 weeks ago, and I said, "Hey, I want to thank you because I've put your philosophy into every piece of material that I've made or written moving forward." He said, "Look at any set of big films from any decade, and you can tell what was going on socially, politically, what was happening in life. Were there wars? Was there were the working class in distress? I mean, you can look at film, and when you look at it kind of in clumps, just like the 80s, you can always tell an 80s sound. You can tell what was going on in the world thematically. And I think that's what people forget, is that cinema is made based on where it's at, based at the time period at which it's at. Even your big Marvel-style movies very lightly ingest an undertone of what is happening in America or being talked about in the world at that time. So to say you could never make The Office today, could you make that Office? Probably not. Could you
Yeah.
make a modern day Office? Absolutely, right? Would
Yep.
it be as good? I'm not here to judge. But, you make things based on what is happening in life right now.
Well, it would probably speak to a different person, right? Like The Office hit a certain person, like going through whatever they were going through, and if it was made today, to your point, they might make it differently, but it would probably speak to different people who were going through things in today's time that we might have been going through 20 years ago.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Today it would be about work-life balance and things like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody
You
would
know,
be
safe
in that
spaces
office right now.
Exactly. Well, yeah, especially after what happened 5 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It would be just an empty office, and everybody would be remoting in, and it'd be a Zoom episode
That'd be pretty
or
funny.
show.
Yeah. So you could have some fun with that. Yeah. You could have some
Correct.
fun with that.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. You have to creatively come up with ideas that are relevant at the time. I mean, listening, Tropic Thunder, an absolutely hilarious film by Ben Stiller. And the other
Hmm.
day he was on it. I mean, I think this was a number of years ago, but he was like, somebody asked him, "Could you make this today?" And he said, "No, absolutely not."
Yeah.
But I'm going to take it one step further. In that exact script form, no, that wouldn't happen. A couple of alterations, a couple of changes, you move some characters around, and you now have a viable film again. So, on the face value, people just want to say, no, you can't make it. But that's also narrow-minded to the overall conversation of what cinema is, what TV is, and what it's supposed to mean and represent.
When you go and pitch a new movie, so like I know that you're kind of looking at another movie right now and trying to get some backers for it. But let's talk about the movie that you just made, or you made a few years ago, In the Neighborhood, and so that's called say the title again.
Daft State.
Daft State, and we can find it. So I want to get into distribution too. That's really interesting to me. But so when you're going to pitch a film to is it producers, right? So producers would come in and they would fund it. Is that how that works?
It depends on whether you're talking about studio level, very independent level, or I guess like mid-level, B-level studio level. Each one of those kind of has different approaches, and just like anything in life, there's no exact science between how you get it. I mean, when you consider that 96% of everything written never gets made, you kind of sit there and go, how does anything get made? And then you
Yeah.
see sometimes the stuff that you're like, how did that cut through the clutter? Well, maybe that was a friendship. Maybe that was they had relationships to the actors or the producers or the money or the studio, that kind of stuff. I'll start with the concept of Daft State, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my first film as a director and writer. So I had
You
already
wrote that too?
produced eight. Yeah, yeah. I
Cool.
co-wrote it with my writing partner, Sam Harder, who I've written a whole number of things with. I mean, he's been with me now for over 5-6 years, and just he's a little bit younger. He's younger than I am, so but we complement each other insanely well. When I first met him, it's like we had both taken the Strengths Finders test at different points in our lives and knew exactly where we stood on the spectrum of stuff. And I was like, okay, anybody who's in their 20s or had taken that in their teens originally, I'm like, okay, I can at least speak to this person. And so I was very like, we just immediately hit it off. So yes, Daft State was something that originally I was trying to find something I wanted to do. And at the time we had only been writing comedy. And I was trying to figure out, I wanted to tackle mental health. I wanted to do something that I could do in the neighborhood, as you said, at the house, with friends of mine, and essentially create a calling card. And because I'm not going to be able to walk into any studio. I don't care if it's the largest to mid-level or C-level. I'm not walking in. And even after producing 8 movies, even with Lionsgate's film, The Turkey Bowl, which was probably the biggest film that I produced, nobody as a director is going to trust you. The old saying is never trust a first-time director. And after doing 8 other films, I finally said, okay, I just need to do something for me. I need to do a calling card. I need to do something that shows I can do it. And so Daft State, I also produced. And so I essentially started gathering.
Can you pause? Because when you talk about producing, like, what does that mean? I understand directing, but the producer, I think of like, I don't really fully understand what a producer does.
That's because there's no exact answer for that question.
Do they just
the
kind
reason
of
why
take the risk, or
no? So there's different producers. So
okay,
in independent film, the people who put in the money are usually executive producers. That's the credit given to the people who put the money in. At a
Okay.
studio level, an executive producer is usually assigned to the production from the studio to oversee the studio's money on behalf of the movie or on behalf of the
Fair.
studio
Okay.
for the movie.
Okay.
The producer, the reason why Best Picture is given to producers is because they are the ones in film that should be guiding the process from start to finish. So when you see produced by, generally that is reserved for the people that start by packaging the script, the director, the financing. They see it through development, through pre-production, production, and post-production, all the way through distribution and
Okay.
every aspect of that throughout. Are they dotting every I, crossing every T? No, that's what you have line producers and production managers and other people for. To put it in corporate terms, which I think maybe a lot of your audience might
Yeah.
relate to, uh, I consider the producers like the board, right? So the
Okay.
shareholders put a board together that says, okay, you 6, 8, 12, whatever people are going to guide the direction of this company. Well, that's what the producers do. They guide the direction of the film. And then the board appoints the president, right? And
Yep.
so that in this case would be like the director. So at the lower the budget, generally the more murky all those are. So in my case, I was the first producer, the first creator, the first writer, and the first director attached because it was my project, right?
Right.
And essentially, it it was one of these things where I mean, it was by all relative means a very low budget film. And what was funny to me is it started out as I just want to make something to show somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to have a calling card to go get my first one. And after I was talking about it with Sam for a while, who was not originally on it yet, I finally said, "Hey." Before I could even say, "Hey," I was kind of thinking. I was doing the kind of the girlfriend thing. Hey, I was kind of thinking, like maybe if you want to say yes, don't feel obligated. You don't have to say yes. But I would really. And before I could even say, "Would you be willing to write or help?" He goes, "Yes, I've been waiting for you to ask that question. I have ideas." And I said, "Okay."
Cool.
And so I sent over my notes and some outlines and the chicken scratch and the stuff I had been working on. And I swear to God, 10 days later, he handed me a draft. And of course, it changed many times over, but it was 80% of the roadmap
Wow.
was written in
Wow.
like 10 days. I mean, just absolutely incredible. And so that's how that got going. And then every step of the way in producing, um, and in this case, producing and directing after writing. After it was done, I sent it out to my casting director out in LA, and I said, "Hey, there's no money in this, but would you like to look at it?" 10 days later, I have to do this movie. I said, "Again, there's no money in it, but I have to do this movie." I'm like, "Okay."
How
And when
often
it
does
was all
that
said and
happen? How often does that happen
not never,
in no?
never.
Really?
It's rare. It's rare. Now, when I say no money, there everybody got paid.
Yeah,
Everybody
but
got
you
paid
mean
about the
there's not
same.
like yeah.
There's no money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody was making for the entire film what they might make in a day or two.
Right.
It was one of those kind of things. Uh, but that was the cool thing because every single person, I was saying, like it was
Wait.
a
Do they
film
get
about.
any when you do that though? Let's say it blows up and becomes really big. Do
Mhm.
they get a piece of the? Do they get a piece of the action
Normally,
in
no,
that
this,
scenario?
yes. I gave everybody from top to bottom that was on the project is either in a direct or a shared pool of back end revenue. Should it make money?
Yeah.
That was important to me because to me it's like if you're all going to come together and do a labor of love, and do an independent film, you got to have the respect to treat every department and every crew member and every cast member equally. You can't be running around, throwing one person 10 times the rate for an equal job that somebody else will do for a quarter of that. I mean, you just can't do that. I create a very fair and open communication set and company when I'm working on these independent films. You just have to. If you're a union film, which most films are, as soon as you get above
Hmm.
about 1.5 to 2 million in budget, then the union is telling you what to do, or an
Hmm.
agent is telling you what to do, and then you going by that guideline.
Yeah.
But so yes, everybody got a piece. By the
Cool.
time it was all said and done, the wild thing was it wasn't just the casting director. Uh, 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 a producer friend, my producing partner Eric Hover, who I've done all of our films with but one. It was my first one. Then I met Eric, and we've been producing ever since. He brought on. He had just got done working with Dr. Dre's film and TV producer at the time. His name's Eni Clemens, and he signed on board to help with the film. A friend of ours, Lisa Cernick, had just gotten off of Clifford the Big Red Dog, but she loved psychological thrillers, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I want to help out with this." And next thing you know, our DP's coming in, our cinematographer, and then we get our lead actor, Christopher Backus, wonderful man. He's married to Mira Sorvino, the Oscar winner. She comes
Oh,
on as
really?
a producer, and
Oh,
then
that's cool.
and next thing you know, as it's
I
all
didn't know he was
evolving, I'm
married to
working.
Mira Savino. That's
Yeah, and
cool.
that's one of the reasons why she's a producer on the film.
Huh.
That's no secret in the media. But then it kind of kept going. Chris introduced me to my editor, John O. Woodford Robinson, who works out of Peter Jackson's offices and studios in New Zealand. He had done Mortal Engines, What We Do in the Shadows. I mean, just some very large, films. And next thing you know, he's like, "Yeah, I'll do your movie." Next thing you know, I'm on with Mike McCready, the founding guitarist of Pearl Jam. Is like, "Yeah, I'll do your score." And so we
Wow.
worked with all of these insanely talented people all along the way saying, "There's no money." But everybody bought into the belief of the film based on friendships, the script, and what the film was, and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Wow.
and the cast was great too. I mean, uh, Paulo Costanzo. I mean, I wanted him to be in the film from the writing phase because he plays the sort of kind of rude, snarky, but likable friend, or partner in the office. But everybody on the page, it was very gruff and rough. And so everyone's coming in like, "Hey," like really angry. And I knew only somebody like Paulo, who came from comedy, who had the ability to sort of adjust mid-sentence and move and make you feel. I knew only he could do it. So the day I got to sit with him and just say, "Hey, here's why I want you involved," the answer was yes for him immediately, because we were talking about his craft and what he brings to the table. And not a lot of people sit and do that. It's just, here's an offer. Hey, here's what we're going to do. And that's it. I like to get into the psychology, the reasoning on why it exists.
Yeah, so that's the thing I wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into is, so you've been doing this for 20 years or more, and
25.
so 25 years. There's got to be like this formula for making hits, right? So it has to be. So is there a formula that you have to follow? And then secondarily, like once you understand that formula well, how much can you play at the boundaries of the formula to make people still be interested in the script and interested in the movie? Like, what does that look like?
So there is a formula, but I think audiences are starting to get smarter than the formula.
Hmm.
I think now we've seen it so much, and maybe I'm wrong. I always like to joke. Somewhere there's an 18-year-old or 17-year-old who's hearing their first, sexualized joke, and they're like, "Hee hee hee, this is funny," for the first time. And as an adult, we're like, "Well, that's lame."
Yeah.
Seen that before, kid. But so we as we grow up, we mature, we change, right? And our appetites change. I saw a film last night, a newer film that's out in theaters right now. Popcorn type of movie, whatever. And I'm sitting there, and I'm literally like in my head going, "Okay, cue this, cue that. Here we go. Do this." And I see that with a lot of films lately that follow the formula. So it's part because you know it, right? And that's
Hmm.
part of it. So you start to see it. Um, But I think the reason why some films break out, like Christopher Nolan, for example, as a filmmaker, uh, you know, he tries and does things that are so not in formula. Quentin Tarantino will take and not follow a formula. Some of the best filmmakers know the formula. James Cameron said this too. Know the formula and then immediately throw it out. Know the
Hmm.
three-act structure. But if you look at James Cameron films, even all the way back to Terminator, he has more of a five-act structure. So
Hmm.
yes, the formula exists, but the formula doesn't guarantee a success. If It's no different than in advertising. Chris, if you knew you could spend $5 million of your money to guarantee even an 8% return for your business, would you spend $5 million?
Say that again.
If
So I
you
said
knew that if
that
you,
one last question.
yes, Chris, if you spent $5 million if you knew you could spend $5 million on advertising and it would guarantee you an 8% return,
Oh
your
yeah, of
5 million
course.
plus 8%, would you spend that in a heartbeat?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Right. Anybody would, right?
yeah, of course.
So no studio has ever perfected that. If they knew the formula and knew how to spend $50 million on a P&A marketing spend to guarantee that they'd at least get that money back plus their spend and all that stuff, they would do it in a heartbeat, right?
Well,
But
was
the
there a
reason
heyday?
why
Was
that
there?
doesn't work, go ahead.
Yeah, was there a heyday though where they could just flood the market with advertising and people would just flock? Enough people would flock to get the money back, like in the '90s.
It was easier,
Like you just
I
make a
want to
crap
say.
movie
There was
and
less
people would
film.
still come.
So yes, there was less film, so you could take slightly bigger risks and know that you had secondary markets that you could make it up with, right?
Hmm.
So that's like the heyday in the 90s. That's why you and I have so many cult classics that we love, right? It didn't necessarily do well theatrically, but because of the home video market,
Hmm.
DVDs, VHS, and all that stuff, it gained enough traction to become what was considered a hit long term, right?
Yeah.
Now we don't have that market. Now the foreign market, which was also was also the second, third area that you could make money in, they're all now making their own films. And so there's not very many films going overseas comparatively like there was in the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
And
So
so
how do you
with
decide?
the
How? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that's it. So I'm just saying with the collapse of both foreign and home video and now streaming giving us way too many options, we're not curating enough eyeballs to really have it's a lot harder to have big success, right? So you
Yeah.
could take a bigger gamble, flood the market, still technically lose and still gain. And last thing I'll say, studios used to famously intentionally make movies that were bad to write down their profit liabilities and tax liabilities
Yeah. Oh my
because
gosh.
content is your product, right? And
Yeah.
so, and they're doing it now. It's why Disney is shedding off all this content from their platform because they want to take write downs. And
Hmm.
so, because of those types of things, when you start getting into the just for fun, I'll call it the evil corporation of it. Uh, you start looking at the underbelly. You go like, oh, that's why sometimes bad things get made, or this thing happens, or this
Oh,
chess
that's
piece
funny.
happens over here. They're always moving and shaking things in the background. And so, as artists, you just have to put out that noise and do the best you can.
Cooper Vision and the AOA have joined forces in a groundbreaking initiative to transform how optometrists treat children with myopia. The Myopia Collective aims to unite our profession and its allies to challenge the status quo and elevate the standard of care for children with myopia. Everyone is invited to become a member of the collective. By joining, you pledge to act in slowing childhood myopia progression. Membership includes regular updates and information about the collective's efforts, access to educational opportunities and resources, and insights from the ambassador optometrists who advocate for community policy and changes supporting the collective's mission. Click the link in the show notes to join the collective today.
So it depends. Today's independent market uh, is very much a. It goes two different ways now. It used to be you would make your film and then you would take it to film festivals or you would take it to a sales agent. They would shop it around, much like we did with Death State. And so we had a sales agent take it out. So we went to Netflix, we went to HBO, we went all over the place, right? So they shop it around. Your best hope is that you get into a bidding war and people are kind of, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and cut deals, and that's it. The problem is that it's a buyer's market. So just like in any business, if there's a surplus of product available, you're going to get less for that product. And so now we've turned into a system where you have to curate a certain level of budget versus script and essentially pre-get as much of that stuff in play as you can. Where is it going to go after? What minimum guarantees do you think you're going to get? That kind of stuff. And so that is moving forward where we go. As far as like predetermining what can happen, anything can happen. And once you start making a film, there's even a world where you start, if you have your team built, you start sending dailies and various things out to buyers as well. Get them excited about it. So it becomes who's excited about your project and what are they going to do for it?
Yeah. All right. Let's try that. Okay. So I think we'll be able to finish it up this way, and as long as you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you fine now.
All right, cool. So the question, I know you were getting into it, but you went to Netflix. So let me restate just so we get it. The question I had was, how do you know where you're going to go for distribution? So we have Netflix, Prime, all sorts of other other things. How do you make the decision on where you go for distribution for an independent film like this?
Uh, I mean, the truthful answer is whoever you're lucky enough to have buy it is usually the case. I mean, it's no different than any industry. If you have an excess amount of product available, it's going to drive the price down, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just basic economics. So in the case, we are in a time frame where there is an abundance of film and television. There is no shortage of anything that you can watch. So essentially, independent filmmakers get a sales agent, and that sales agent takes and chops it around. So they take it to Netflix, they take it to Amazon, Apple, HBO, Showtime, all the way down to BET and any place that you can think of that buys material. Even companies that are more on the inside that you would never even know of publicly. And it's the agent's job to find the best buyer and hopefully pit people against each other. But that ultimately, from an independent level now, is sort of a lose-lose situation. It's very, very hard to gain traction that way.
Mm.
And so the case with most films moving forward, all of the films that I've been involved with lately that were in the middle of packaging, all happen to we do algorithms of what this actor will bring this amount of revenue, foreign and domestic, and
Mhm.
if you take this script with this team, you get sort of you want to drive your risk threshold down to 20-30%. It's not the 90s anymore, or even the 2000s or the early Netflix days when you literally could make a $50,000 film and Netflix would go, sure, we'll take it. Those
Yeah.
days are long gone. And so you have to be really smart with what you do, which is actually excites me because I think we have hit a point where too much film and too much TV is out there. And I know that seems weird to say as a filmmaker, but getting back to my earlier story about the film history teacher that I knew very well, uh, that said, look at everything by decade and know, and you'll see what was happening in society. Too many films are made on the surface. They're not following the formula that you mentioned. They're
Mm.
not breaking new ground. They're not going, they're making an A plot driven story only rather than an A plot with a C plot, or B and C plot that also then has reasoning and is a statement in society. I like to build things and look at every film, and I don't care if I'm producing or directing. Why does this film need to exist?
Mm.
What is the reason we are going to do this movie? And I haven't done it yet. One day I'm sure it will. My answer will be because there was money. But outside of that, there generally needs to be a real reason. Otherwise, we're just making slop when people are going, 1 star, 2 stars, I don't like it. And they don't understand. Most people can't identify why they don't like a film. They just have the feeling of, I don't like it, right? And so that's where you have to package differently. And even as a director, on the next one that we're in the middle of casting, I have, we all have people that we love. I've had to sit there with the other producers and with the financiers and with the team and go, okay, um, creatively, this is who I see in the film. But then it's their job to tell me who creatively also checks that other box.
Mm.
And so that's sort of a new thing for me, but I think it's really the way you protect the film and you protect the financiers. You have to protect all parties. And there is a time to fight for all creative, but you have to work together because film is a collaborative art. And even in that art form comes the backing of a financier and of a studio. And so you have to do that.
Well, it's hard because you can't, like with music, music has been commoditized in a similar way as
Hmm.
film has, but with music, you can still make it up on the back end with concerts, right? You can go on
Yep.
tour, you can sell swag, but film, you make it once and it's going to be enduring in that level. So I want to get your reaction to that, but before I do that, I love that because this really plays well into the things I've been challenging other doctors with, like even talking about this, is that I ask people, and I've been asking myself this, and it's not an easy question to answer. I'll tell you this.
Okay.
But the question that I've asked myself, and I'm asking doctors all the time to think about their practices this way is, if your practice went away tomorrow, what would your community be like? Could your community, like, what would happen? And I mean, that's like, in a big city like in Omaha or other big cities, like it's a really hard question to answer honestly. I still think that the answer is we provide personalized care. We develop relationships with patients that they would really miss and we would really miss.
Hmm.
Um, but
You
like
would hope. I
I
mean,
yeah,
obviously,
I
if
think I
if
think
you
it's
have a good
true.
relationship with your patients, they better miss you.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah.
true. I think it's true, but like, can you take it to the next level where you're like, we do something so different that patients wouldn't be as well off? And again, like that's a harder question for a lot of us to answer. I think then it comes into like, am I being so unique that I'm offering things that most other people wouldn't be offering? Would they be okay? So it's like, my point is asking that question. I love that you ask it for yourself in a slightly different way, but it's just like, what do we do that's so that we can obsess about, and where is our place in this realm? Because if we're just making, to your point, if we're just having an office to have an office that, like, to make money, or to, I think very few doctors like just want to make money. Like they want to serve, they have to make a good income, but they
Correct.
also, like, they want to serve a patient population, they want to improve people's lives. But sometimes it's hard to think about, like, how are we actually improving somebody's life in a way that's distinctly different from other people? And that comes with a formula, right? Like you walk into an optometric office, you will see a formula, but we play with that formula on different ends, and we're trying to make that more pleasing to the patient, but also so that we can deliver services to them that nobody else can. So yeah, I think that's totally applicable to the things that we deal with in practice. That you're, do you think a lot of producers think about things like that, or are there some you look at like, this guy's just in it for the money?
Well, that's the other side. There's not as much money in it anymore. Just like I
Right?
mean, I hear the same thing in the medical field that like over the last few decades, the amount of profits gone down in medical. Same
Oh, it's
thing's
true.
happening in film. I think it's happening in a lot of industries across the board. I think as a society, I think I think many people think, and this probably isn't wrong. We talk about the separation of the rich and poor, the dwindling of the middle class. There's this idea that everything is just big business, but it's also harder to be in business, period. I mean, we get nickel and dimed every step of the way. I know every business
Oh
does.
yeah.
I mean, it's a struggle, and I think it's no different than your industry. I think that there's a tremendous amount of people who really think hard about their craft, who think through their interactions with their patients, with their staff, that really care and are thinking, how can I make this experience better? What can I do differently, as you just said, but yet still follow a formula? Uh, and I think there's a lot of people in film who do that. I think that there's a ton that don't. And I think that there's a ton that don't in every facet of every industry. I think that there's the people that get into it and just ride whatever wave they feel.
Mhm.
And then there's people such as yourself who are really actually thinking through, like, how am I making a difference? What can I do to inspire? How can I get information out there? How can I make things better? And sadly, I think that's more of a rare commodity than the norm, because I think we get stuck in our place and we just feel like that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean it's very easy to do. I mean, I think it's very very easy to just kind of get in a rut and like you said, ride the wave. Let me bring it back to film, just because that's your wheelhouse. How does this so in the environment that we're in right now, where content is, not even a dime a dozen, you can pull up anything and entertain yourself, by scrolling through different things. How do you hold people's? Are you holding attention differently now in a movie like Daft State, or maybe the next one, or it doesn't matter? Attention will be there if the story is compelling. Does that even enter into your mind?
Yeah, it does. It does. In fact, so the next film, I can't say the title yet, but I will say this. I can give you the sort of light pitch on it.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi heist film about this group of thieves who break into the Elon Musk style home to uncover the secrets of his robotic empire,
Hmm.
and in the meantime, get revenge and uncover some secrets. And it turns into a fight to survive the night.
Oh.
I can
Is
get
it a
into it
comedy
more.
or is it another thriller?
It's a sci-fi heist. It's a thriller action comedy.
Okay.
Some people always say you're only supposed to have two genres. I don't believe in that. Right? I mean, no kidding. Major studio, had a meeting with them the other day. No names, and they were like, "What is this film?" And I said, "Oh, it's going to be epic. It's a sci-fi film. It's a heist movie. It's got comedy. It's got action and thriller and murder." And they're like, "Yeah, we can't sell that." I said, "What do you mean you can't sell that? It's got everything that every classic big movie should have. Now we need one, maybe two genres tops."
Is that because of attention span, or that's just history?
No, that's because more of the modern day attention span, but more importantly, because most people are expecting things not to work theatrically. If you look back at most big theatrical films, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry, there's going to be some thrills, there's going to be maybe some romance, there's going to be different moments, because we are human, we are real human beings. And Netflix now is saying, hey, make it simple that while you're on your phone, if you miss
Uh,
the next 5 minutes and
uh,
look up, you still know what's going on.
oh,
True story. They are telling their writers to do that.
oh.
Whereas with the team on this next one, I said, I will do this movie. Sam and I co-wrote the most recent draft, but another writer had previously written and came up with the concept. It was a wonderful concept, and Sam and I came in and really made it for today. It had circled the studio system for 12 years, and so I got the offer to direct the movie, and they said, you guys can modernize it and make it today, and we did. And we're very very happy with how it is turning out structurally. Now we're in the middle of casting. So to that model, got to get the right actors. We have our financing. So to my you said you
That's
talked to my
great.
father. We actually have our financing. We actually have our producers. We have our financing. We actually are shooting it in Canada. We actually have our Canadian producers and all that stuff. We have everything pretty much ready to go. It's literally who's going to say yes to Chad to be in the movie. And so that is literally what's happening right now. And as long as we check two more boxes, three more boxes, then, we're off to the races. Easier said than done in most cases, but so that's where we're at. And so, yeah, it's how you look at it, right? I froze. I apologize. What were
No,
we
it's okay.
saying?
That it's. I mean, what's interesting to me is that, like, in a lot of ways, this long form, we're coming up on an hour of conversation, and this is sort of bucked the trend, um, with like people shortening everything as short as it can possibly be, but the
Yeah.
fact that they're asking for scripts to be such that I won't miss anything if I look down at my phone. Um, I don't know if it says more about them or more about me. Um,
Well, it's both. See,
yeah,
again, it's not, it's all parties. I mean, I've heard the argument that movie theaters, if they want people to come back, update your stuff,
yeah.
create a better experience. How many times have you gone into a movie theater and the screen is small and the place is stuffy and it feels like, people were still smoking in the theater from 40 years ago? Like, it's like that's not going to excite people to come in. The sound's bad, and so it's the theater owners, it's the people's attention spans, it's TikTok and YouTube, it's studios not giving something new to people, right?
Mm,
So it's
yeah.
all that. So with this newest film, I had one caveat after we got through the script. I said one thing, and I said, I am making this for the big screen. I am not making this to be dumped onto a streaming platform that nobody will remember the title a week from now. If
Mm,
you can tell me I will have theatrical release, that I'm in this film and I will
mm,
do it. And they said, yes. Obviously, there's always going to be contractual check boxes after that. But they have
right.
said yes.
Right.
I said I'm making a film for the big screen. So yes, it is going to have those extra layers and not just be one note. It's not just going to be one A plot and that's it. I want people to walk away and have a sense of what means something to them, because yes, I gave you the pitch for the movie, but the truth behind it is all about workers' rights set in the future in a
Mm,
world where you
mm,
have no control based on what is happening in society today. The
cool.
reason for the film is what lets us go have fun, and it circles. And I think anytime you have a business, a film, something that can not just check one box, but can check three, four, fives, not just here it exists, but here's how it's helping people. Here's how it's providing something positive for them in their life. And all those types of things, you start putting all that into it. Now you have a film, a business, a something that matters, not just another thing that's on a list somewhere.
Amen. Amen. Listen, Chad, I'll be respectful of your time. I'm sorry about our glitchy internet, but I do want to be respectful of your time. Let me give you one last
Just so you know, I
opportunity
had
to.
blocked 2 hours for this. So,
Oh, did you?
yeah, I mean,
Oh, I
I
didn't know
got
that.
extra time if you have a few extra
No,
questions.
I
No
got a
worries.
couple. Actually, I got a couple more questions if you got the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
As long
So
as you
the
promise to edit this. So it doesn't,
well,
you don't
yeah,
see me
yeah,
for
it will be
5 minutes
edited.
itching my beard.
It will be edited. I can't promise everything will be perfectly edited,
No, you're fine. I'm
it'll
just
be
messing
edited.
with you. I'm just
The
messing with you.
the so the idea of, okay, how do you, when you go into, so distribution in movie theaters now, or at any point in time, you go to a movie theater and you say, hey, like a movie theater conglomerate, like how do they decide like which theaters are going to pick it up, how many theaters are going to put it in, how does that all work?
Well, that also depends. Just like you have sales agents, you have theatrical brokers as well that actually handle all that stuff. You know, Steve Jobs once said, and I'm gonna, this is paraphrase, not word for word, but he always said, you know, when you're young, you look at this world as this big magical place that's complicated and all this kind of stuff, and it's not until you get into the world that you start realizing that everything that we see was built by people no smarter than you.
Mm,
And that's the same thing, you know, the magic of Hollywood and the magic of how this, you know, is there. It yes, there's a ton of layer, just like there's so much nuance in your business,
yeah.
there's a ton of nuance in ours. But you know, there is plug and play. There's brokers that handle the release, and then there's companies that handle sending the distributing the DCP files nowadays. It used to be the big film reels that would go out,
Right.
and the projectionist would spool them up. But it now they can either electronically or physically send what's called a DCP. It's the digital
Mm,
version that plays, and then they also send the one sheet, which is the movie posters that hang up in the lobby. So
hmm.
there's the theater that says, yes, I want this. And then this company sends that material out on behalf of the distributor. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're, you know, Lionsgate or, you know, DreamWorks or whatever, New Line Cinema, you know, they send that stuff out. Uh, and so and then digitally the same thing. You know, Daft State got released in I think 5 or 6 different foreign territories. We're still working through a couple places, but uh, I remember, you know, I'm not sending it to them. The distributor has a house, and they say, "Hey, this is our format," and then boop, it kicks the stuff out and sends them the electronic file.
Right.
So
Right.
it's more of just, I mean, it's like anything. It's about relationships and about connection. And what do you have? The film we're working on now is more of a low budget A-list film.
Mm,
So they're not going to be. The question is not going to be, do theaters want the film? It's going to be, can we get the marketing spend to complement the film to make
right.
sure that it works?
Right.
That's more of what it is. This newest one is a much larger film, um,
Mm.
for
So
me, you know, directorially.
yeah, I can't wait to see it all come together. So, well, so talk about Daft State, just so that the listening audience, maybe we can give them a reason to where can they get it, but also like, I've seen the trailer for it. I have not seen it yet, so it is on my list of things to watch. But where can people get it? And then
The
just give them
Blu-ray
a
just came
overview
out, by
of.
the way.
What's that again?
The Blu-ray just came out. I just got mine in today.
Oh, cool, cool.
So, but yes.
So tell us about the story. Like, why do I want to go see this? Yeah, start there.
Uh, uh, it's funny. I've been away from this project for about a year now. No, it Deaf State. Like I said, it started out as a mental health piece. Really, it's about this guy. I wanted to do a tribute to Alfred Hitchcock.
Mm,
I wanted to do a thing that was a slow burn. Most films present something and then take you through the journey. And I thought, you know, what if there was this thing that exists in the world, but we don't know about it? And then we let, in a more Hitchcockian way, we have a slow burn where we follow this main character through his life of home and work friends and this and that are all there, but we're not giving you the answer to what's happening.
mm,
And we guide you through that process. And that's what Daft State became. It was about a guy who is literally on the brink of losing everything, and he slowly descends into madness, but you have no idea what's driving him. Is it his wife? Is it his daughter? Is it his business? Is it his therapist? Is it his any of these people that keep coming into his life? And we shot it like, again, since it was low budget and a lot of it was in the neighborhood, we shot it like an evil Groundhog's Day, where
mm.
you kind of keep reliving the same thing over and over again. Because how often in life do we do that? We walk into
Yeah.
that door. That was kind of the thought that I had one day when I just, before anything was even written, you have to walk into the same door day after day after day, not wanting to face the reality of what's in front of you. And
Mm,
that's really what Daft State's about.
mm. It's like the like you dread. I'll just say it this way. Like I was talking to a guy, and he was it's one of my friends, and he was talking about like on Sunday, he gets this dread about the impending week that's coming. So his weekend's
Mhm.
great. You know, he's got enough leisure time in his life, but Sunday it was a sense of, I don't think that he used dread, but it was either dread or doom. And he knew he was going to have to go through the door. Like that seems like, wow, that's, it wasn't like existential for him, but you could see that if he wasn't put together well, like mentally, if he didn't have his things together, how that could spiral into a whole bunch of other things.
Mhm. No,
Is
100%. Yeah, and that was exactly it. And then that was even when we were making it. Every single cast member, crew member, everyone. I think the reason why people signed on to do it, just because clearly I said it wasn't from a business perspective.
mm,
They all had their own conversations about mental health. I can't tell you how many people sat me down and said, "Hey, this happened to me so many years ago, or
mm,
this is what I'm struggling with. This is what
mm,
I'm," and it was like I accidentally put a whole bunch of people on a project that all had their own things they were working through. But wait, see, that's the thing. We all are.
yeah,
We're all doing that, right? And so what I wanted to do was do a movie version to the extreme of taking you through that process.
mm,
And it's I will tell you the trailer, which I really love the trailer. The studio that made that, our distributor, it's a little bit more skews a little horror. This film is very much a mystery thriller drama,
mm. It does
more
feel
so than
horror, like a
anything.
horror film from the
Yeah, and
trailer.
it's absolutely not. I mean, it's
Okay.
definitely, so all of your listeners, it's one of those. I'll never make a movie like this again. It definitely is not a commercial movie. I am so proud of it though, because
Mm,
I mean, our sound designer, our editor, our the actors, the camera work, everything, the way this was put together, I am so proud of. And most filmmakers, they're kind of like, you know, yes, is it perfect? No. Are there things that I know that I would have loved to have seen different? Sure, absolutely. No film is ever made the way you think it's, just like no business plan ever ends up
right.
being exactly what's on the page. But I'm proud of the team. I'm proud of what it was. It's done very well. It's a polarizing film. It's one of those where people either really get it and want to talk about it and love it, or they watch it and they're like, it's not for me. But the people who understand film can at least say, like, I respect the art. But I'm very proud of it. Everything moving forward, nobody would ever let me make that film again, nor would I want to.
Mm,
Every other film that we want to do moving forward, even if it tackles sensitive material, much more commercial, much more fun, much bigger. But that's filmmaking. Nobody remembers, Christopher Nolan's first film. They all think it's Memento,
right.
you know, but he had
Right.
one beforehand. And
What was the
so
one before it?
again, what's up?
What was the one before it?
I knew you were going to ask that as soon as I said
Well, I'll just look it
it.
up. I'll just look it up.
Oh man.
The
Uh,
Well, I think the interesting part to me is just that um, you're able to still be passionate about it, and what I would guess is like sometimes you get this, like in any business, you get a sense of just kind of going through the motions, right? You get really good at something, and it's easy to, you said before, to ride the wave. What do you do to keep your mental focus when you're working on something like this, so that you wake up one day and you don't think, oh man, it's a Sunday and I dread doing this on Monday? What do you do for that?
um, it depends on the phase. And by the way, Christopher Nolan's first film was Following. I can't believe I forgot it. It's such a simple word that I completely flipped out on that. But yeah, it was a British noir thriller,
Okay.
made for like $6,000. But anyway, the how does anybody do it?
Yeah, I'm just asking you for your perspective. Like, what
It's
do you do to not get the case of the Mondays?
um, if you're in production, you don't really have a choice. Uh, it's there's no 9 to 5 when you're actually in production. There's 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you just crash and get up and go at it the next day. And even as a director, I'm very hands on. Classically, the rigging teams and other people go in and set everything up, and then magically the actors and the director come in and take over, and then they get to leave early. And I don't do that. I like to be with everybody, handling everything every step of the way straight through. But then I got to go home, and I still got to go back to my hotel and make shot notes and review footage and think about, okay, the actors did this, and now how is that going to affect this next scene? And you're putting this puzzle together.
Mm.
So the case of the Mondays is very short-lived. It's usually cracking of the eye, saying, "Oh God, I didn't get enough sleep. Please help me get through the day." And then go, and they're shoving coffee in your face, and you're starting all over. um, you just have to be very respectful of your body. I think, and I think a lot of us, I mean, I know I've, struggled with that, like, what you eat on set or what you drink throughout the day or at night, all of those things can affect your mood and can affect the
Hmm.
longevity. And, the first week of any film is a euphoric high, but then you get into week 2, week 3,
You're in
week
the
4,
grind.
and all of a sudden you start feeling the fatigue. And the last time that I was on a set gone for that long was the Turkey Bowl with Lionsgate down in Oklahoma. And
Mm.
I only saw my wife a handful of times through the nearly 3 months that I was down there. And so you can be lonely, and so you just have to uh, surround yourself with good people. Make sure that you have people that you can rely on to talk through with things. And I know it sounds weird, but very much watch what you eat, what you drink, what you
Yeah.
do,
Doesn't sound weird at all.
because it matters on this
Yep.
next one. That's one of the things we're talking about. Like I told the other producers, I said, we're going to be curating a very special menu. I don't want to see pizza if we're late on a day. Like, let's really make sure that we do it right, and give people the feeling of camaraderie and the feeling of health and care. And I think you get a better product from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably true. So if people wanted to see Daft State now, where do they go?
Amazon, Apple, YouTube for purchase. I believe in the coming months, it's going to be hitting what they call the AVOD window. That's the advertising video window. So it'll be on maybe Tubi or Pluto.
Okay.
There's a number of places that you'll be able to watch it. I'm not sure if Amazon streaming, as far as the AVOD
Prime.
side, is in there yet, but I'll have more information on that, in the coming months. But right now, it's on all of those platforms to rent or buy. So pretty much anywhere where you can buy or rent movies. The Blu-ray and DVD also just came out. If anybody wants to ever own a piece of physical media, which you had mentioned music, and I think during the digital connection we never got back to it. You said film only lives in one place. Music, I think, has got it right. The resurgence of vinyl,
Yeah.
not just in the merchandising side, but the vinyl side, the ability to release limited edition sets. I mean, I can't tell you how many artists I've rebought. I basically rebought my CD case that we had in
Yeah.
high school, right?
Yeah.
All in
Yeah.
vinyl. And but I think we're seeing a resurgence of wanting to own physical media. And I think that's where the film industry really needs to do things different. It's something I'm
Mm.
fighting for very much on this next film, is instead of having a red carpet premiere, let's do a worldwide premiere. If you can beam a concert into a theater, how about you have a one night only event where at the end of the film, all of the cast and filmmakers come in, and you do a live, nationwide Q&A with a moderator, where from your seat you can chime in, and then anybody who shows up gets a piece of art or something, or a memorative thing from the film, just for being there that night.
Yeah.
Or put together a limited edition box set where you don't just get the film, but you get a piece of the film history and you say, hey, this is box one of 1,000. And once we're out, that's it.
Yeah.
Give people a reason to get out of bed and go to the theater. Or I guess not the couch, I should say.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
give people a reason to buy something. Like make it special again. Because when we were a kid, when we were growing up, it was special.
Yep.
Art, film was special.
Yep. Well, I mean, to somebody who owns, I mean, I own over 1,000 records, vinyl records, and there's something about when you put that record, when you buy the record for the song that you want, and then you put that record on the plate, um, you have really, it's inconvenient to actually switch between stuff. I'm not saying make this inconvenient, but there's something physically that you have to do, that you have to interact with the music. And you spend time reading through the back of the back of the album, and then you pull the sleeve out and you read all the things that are in the sleeve, and you read whatever the artists want to put on there. I mean, to your point, you're getting a lot more than just the music, but then that extra stuff ties you to an experience, and then pretty soon, before you know it, you love that whole album front to back. Where now, when music is on my phone, maybe I don't do this because of my history of the relationship with the music, but it is kind of easy. Like, I don't like that song, I'm going to move past it. Or they present you with a playlist, and then you move past the songs you don't like. They're easy. It's easy to move past it. It's disposable. Whereas
Correct.
when you're buying the vinyl, it's not disposable. It means something, and you'll give it the time it needs to sort of brew and fester, and then you kind of chew on this and you realize, like, holy cow, what I didn't like at first is genius now. And
Right?
and I think you're right. I think you're right. The
Yeah.
film
Well,
industry
and
has to do
because
something like that.
you trade, first off, especially when you were younger, let's say you mowed lawns or worked as
Yeah.
a bus boy or whatever, right? You work 4 hours to go buy a CD or an album or a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
You first off, you put your hard-earned money onto it. It's not something you clicked a button on your phone that you think you just have for free.
Yep.
And then also, because you put your hard-earned money into it, because you physically had it, you put that record on, or that CD in or whatever, and you listen to every dang song no matter what, because
You
dang
paid
it,
for it.
for better or worse, you
Yeah.
paid for
four
it. And so
hours.
you listen
The
to that
skin on my
entire thing.
fingers are raw from scrubbing chicken fat off the
Yes.
dishes. Yeah.
I'm going to listen to every one of those songs, and that's where as fans we fell in love with the B-side. All of
Yeah.
a sudden you're going, wow, there's so many great tracks in here that are not on the radio, right?
Yeah.
And that was the thing. I mean, to an extent, even with movies, I mean, maybe a little less interactive than music because you're not pulling out the sleeve and looking at it as much, but you still felt a connection to it. And then if your friend wanted to borrow it, as long as they were a trustworthy friend, you let them borrow it, right? And so
Right.
you were able to share that experience. You're able to say, you know what, this moved me. I'm going to get this to you. And if it moved you, then all of a sudden you both had something in common to talk about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the one song that you listened to. And it you talk about attention span. That was one of the other things that we didn't circle back to. That's where the theatrical experience comes in. The
Yeah.
theatrical experience is the last place on earth, I feel, where you literally have an obligation to put your phone away and literally sit in a dark room with other people and watch something and experience the things that you miss at home or particularly miss when you're on your phone. Because any good filmmaker that has made a film has made an experience for you that has thousands of people that have crafted every single inch of that movie has been made for you. And if done right, even glancing away for a split second to be on your
Yeah.
phone for a minute, you might miss a look or a thing that says so much to humanity or to that piece, right? And
Yeah.
that's where being in a world where you can be invested, It's why after this next film, I'm planning on rebuilding a home theater for my own screening because I get
Mm,
sent screeners and I'm asked to review films. I'm actually creating in my own home a cell phone free zone in my own theater where I can mimic a smaller version of that
mm,
experience to be able to screen other filmmakers' films and get that connection to it because it gets easy. We've all done it. You're sitting on the couch,
yeah,
hopefully it's a rerun or a
yeah,
movie you've seen before, but you're on the phone. I mean, growing up, my dad, I'd see him taking the ironing board down. I was like, oh, is it movie night? He goes, yep. And he'd go down and he'd be ironing while watching movies. And I mean, it kills me. I'm like, oh, Dad, why are
yeah,
you ironing while watching a movie? You're going to miss so much.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the time we're in, but I think it there are things that are meaningful enough where we have to put things down, and um, you build something that's compelling, but the audience isn't ready to be compelled. That's a challenge.
It is. But that's no different than you look around a restaurant. I don't care
Oh
whether
yeah,
I mean, how many times have you sat at a restaurant and you look around and I know we've all been, I'm sure you've been guilty. I'm guilty of it at
yeah,
times,
yeah,
but you're looking around and like, I'm watching a couple even without kids on a date and they're not even saying a word to each other and they're
yeah.
sitting on their phones. Or you see families where you've got, kids and parents and like, like they're
Kids
all on
got
their
the
phones.
headphones on, and yeah,
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
just, there has to be, and it doesn't have to be, obviously nothing in life is perfect, but just the idea of telling kids. I taught my first, I always get asked to teach film class or come and be a guest speaker at times or whatever. And I remember that this last time I was in a classroom, I always ask everybody, how many in here want to be in film? Like whether it's writing, directing, or camera work, or editing, anything in film. And always there's going to be people that raise their hand. I went to my first one, not a single person in that room raised their hand, an entire
Really,
classroom, not one. But I know for a fact, had I said anybody wants to be an influencer, I would have seen a number of hands
yeah,
pop up. And
yeah.
is it its own form of art? Yes. I'm not in any way dogging influencers, but there is a difference between telling an entire 90 to 120 minute or more story and creating short form content. They both have their place. But if we could just teach we just keep teaching kids the difference in that, and also all of us being aware of like it's the human interaction that means something. And I know in a film you're sitting in a dark room and you're not interacting, but you're still experiencing things with other people, and just that human connection, even when you're with people and putting down the phone and being present. These are things that I think are becoming so much more vital to the safety and really security of humanity, truly.
It's interesting that you bring that up. I met an influencer recently that my assumption was that this person would have been very dynamic and very engaging and very interesting based on what I had seen on social media,
Hmm.
and it was entirely the opposite. So we've actually, and I think you could probably say the same thing about some actors. My guess is that you would probably, actors in big film, that maybe you actually get to know them and you're like, oh, they have nothing interesting. But my point is about bringing this story up is that, I think people, just because you've mastered a certain craft does not mean that you're actually really engaging or interesting person. You've just been able to figure out how to engage through that medium, and that might say a lot about me. People could say the exact same thing about me. Is like, I think it's harder because I have longer conversations, so you really know the way my brain thinks. But they could say that about me. Like, I was expecting a lot more from Chris. He wasn't that insightful or engaging. But I guess my point in bringing all that up is just to say that when you get a peek behind that curtain, you can kind of tell, has somebody really thought deeply about where they're coming from or what they're building or what they're developing, or have they just got a certain skill set that allows them to do something really well. And you can't really know the answer to that unless you actually are willing to have a conversation. And so few of us are willing to have a conversation to uncover that answer.
I mean, and on top of it, let's be honest, you can kind of fake who you are for about 6 straight months. I always say that if you're going to be, I always say that if anybody's getting into
6 months,
dating, I'm
huh?
always like, listen, it takes 6 months to get to know who somebody really is.
Hmm.
You know, I
Why?
mean,
Wait. Why did you think 6 months?
I don't know. It was an old joke. Maybe it was just because it seemed like every relationship of mine ended right before or after 6 months, usually
So
around
people
that
got
time.
tired
You were
of
like,
you after 6 months. They realized, like, I don't
yeah,
like Chad after
yeah, I do
six
not like
months.
Chad. This is not
Yeah.
working,
Yeah.
or I would sit there and go, God, this isn't working. I'll write it out until they break up with me. Um, no, but it's very true. I mean, they always talk about this with comedians. You see these comedians, they're funny and they're big and they're this. A lot of comedians are quiet and more introverted in personal lives.
Mm,
And that's not true for everyone. But it's particularly with people that perform. I'm lucky enough that I'm not a performer in the sense that I'm not in front of the camera all the time, right? I'm
mm,
I'm behind the scenes. I'm writing and this. So I've tried to make it my personal mission to be myself every step of the way as much as possible. Yes, forming, I mean, if you like something that I don't love, not saying, "Oh, I love that," but being curious, saying, "Well, tell me about it." Or there's a
mm.
difference between not engaging, and be like, "I don't like that," but
Yeah.
but having kind of a wonder of the world. And I know you kind of have that same thing. Like, and I don't know anybody who would sit down and have a conversation with you and go, "Well, he wasn't insightful," because I know how your mind works, right? So if
Yeah.
anybody's willing to give anybody the time, they're going to see that, right? And so I've just made it my mission to be me and then be able to ride those situations and not try to pretend to be something I'm not. A lot of people try to pretend to be something they're not, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's where it gets different. And that's where you can meet influencers, which is still in front of the camera, and they go, "Oh, that wasn't at all what I was expecting." And in some ways, there's always that joke of like never meet your heroes.
Oh, it's
And
totally right.
you know,
Totally right.
it's one of those where it's like, it can go one of two ways generally, but people forget we're all human, right? You could be the
Yeah.
biggest celebrity on the planet. Leonardo DiCaprio has been constipated at one time in his life, I'm pretty certain, right? So everybody is a real human. It
Yeah.
just you build people up, and that goes back to um, the Steve Jobs quote. The world was built by people not smarter than you,
Yeah.
right? They're just people who were willing to get out and do it.
Yeah. They figured
If you,
something out. That's right.
yes, if you're willing to go out there, give it your all, fail, learn from failure, succeed, then think that you're going to be great, then fail again, and then get
Yeah.
back on and have success. If you can just do those things, you can do about whatever you want in life. And I think that's what people are missing. And now with social media, we spend all of our time looking at other people's perfect worlds
Right.
through a singular image or a singular set of curated images or videos that were highly edited, highly altered. I mean, I work with some very, very, very famous celebrity influencers, and they'll spend. They're all positive, which is what I love about these guys
Yeah.
particularly. But everything that they do, they could spend a week on 20 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
And so people don't realize how hard it is to perfect even an image online, right? And so that's where the sooner you realize that we're all just people figuring it out, the sooner that you should be happier in life and happier with yourself and more motivated to go out and try something.
Yeah. And work hard. Like, what I realize over time is that, like, there probably are people who sort of came into their success and sort of stumbled in it. But to your point, most have worked really, really hard to um, acquire a set of skills and refine that set of skills in a way that um, in a way that's compelling to others. And when you realize that, it's like you can't really hate on people who are successful because they did it because they were working. They they didn't they didn't just come into it. They really worked hard and put something into it. And I think that's the thing that I always that's compelling to me when I meet
Yeah.
people and really kind of get behind the surface. It's like you could easily say, "Oh, well, Chad, he's a movie producer, but so he must be successful. He's going to build a theater in his basement." But it's like, no, you probably had some. Actually, you want to share like some pretty big failures that you maybe not even think about failures as failures anymore, but you realize like that wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be, but it allowed me to do this. It taught me that, and that's just sort of the game of life, right? That's the
It
way that
is.
it works.
Yeah, I mean, I've been failing since the minute I got into the business 25 years ago, but I've had a lot of success, and so that's, I mean, it's. I remember one of the first people who gave me a chance to produce here locally and get involved in commercials and stuff like that. I ended up calling him years later and I said, thank you. Thank you for letting me fail. I literally said, I would have fired myself so many times when you didn't, now that I know what I did wrong. I go,
Yeah,
you kept giving me the chance to fail. And so today I now stand here doing the things that I do. And I called him and said that years ago. And because that's the thing, if you just recognize that everything is a pursuit. And I tell this to any business owner or any film team that I build, anybody, I say this, nobody's ever going to be perfect. So I'm going to expect us to be perfect. So when we fail within reason. And I think if you don't take the easy road, if you expect to try as hard as you can to do everything that you can look at and say, yes, I gave it my all. When you fail up.
yeah.
And I think that's a big thing
Where did you
that
learn
that
that, Chad? Where did you learn that? Like when I think back about high
us in high
school.
school.
Did you learn that in high school? Really?
Say what?
You
No,
learned that in
no,
high
no.
school?
I meant when you think back to high school when I was
Yeah.
just a bumbling moron in school, you're
Well,
saying.
we all were. Like that's why I always tell people I was like I was probably this jerk that that nobody has any fond memories about. Um, but like, when did you learn? When did you learn what you just said? When did you learn that? When did it
I'm
become
trying to remember.
crystallized in your brain?
I think it was an evolution. I've been saying it for a while now. I'm trying to remember when. I want to say it was right around when I started my actual entertainment producing career.
Hmm.
So I always say, like, I mean, I went. The thing about it is, I just directed my first movie that came out, right? And I'll go by decade. You got 10 years of dreaming about making movies. I got 20 years of being in the film business. I had 10 years of producing to make my first movie. So just
Hmm.
think about that. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen fast for everybody. And most directors, particularly writers and directors, they're on the second half of their life anyway, because you have to learn things. You have to learn how the world works and all that. But to get to that statement, when I started my entertainment company about 15 years ago, or 12 years ago, uh, it started to become more apparent that as I worked with other creatives, other writers, other filmmakers, everybody started seeming to take the easy road. It was easy to go like, well, they'll justify that, or you can fix it here, or
Hmm.
they'll fix this in post, and then I started meeting other people that were business owners and their businesses were just getting off the ground. And it was kind of like, well, they started being wishy-washy on certain things, and oh, we can figure that out later. And just kind of, I kind of started saying, like, look, with art, nothing's ever perfect. I think that's why art factored into this realization. It wasn't one moment. It was everything that we learned in high school. It was everything that we learned post high school. It was everything that, I know my dad taught me. It was watching my dad succeed and fail and then succeed and then
Hmm.
succeed even better. It was looking at all of that and then going, okay, if we're going to make this movie, we know that it's not going to be perfect, but let's expect it to be.
Hmm.
And that's where that started, and then it's cemented for the last 12 years of just being, no, that applies to life, that applies to everything. It's not just a movie, it applies to everything in life. So it was an evolution over the last decade and a half. Long,
All right, man, I'm gonna
long-winded
leave it
answer to
there.
get to something pretty simple.
No, I think I got to leave it there. I don't know that there's any other better way to finish this out than that. So
Love it.
I'm thanks for so much for jumping on and catching up with me on this. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah.